Hi, I don't just play a lot of tennis. I'm also a top-rated lawyer, and what I do is personal injury. And a lot of my cases involve wrongful death, unfortunately. Many of them involve wrongful death caused by car accidents. One of the things that surprises me the most is that a vast majority of the people, my clients or the people that I talk to, have little to no understanding about the types of coverage or that they buy for their vehicles. So I'm just gonna try to, using some Florida policies that I've seen from my clients, I'm gonna try to explain why you should never reject underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage. Here's a good policy. It provides coverage for bodily injury liability, each person and each occurrence. So bodily injury liability, it covers your liability to somebody else if somebody else is injured because of your fault. So you own a car, you're going to buy insurance, and when you're buying bodily injury liability, you're buying insurance that will protect your assets so that if someone else is injured because of your negligence or the negligence of somebody using your vehicle with your permission, then the insurance company will first of all defend you if there's a lawsuit, but also will try to negotiate a settlement and will pay out up to that amount, $250,000, subject to a few exceptions that I'm not going to discuss in this video. So that doesn't cover either you or any family member in your car that was injured because of somebody else's negligence in operating another vehicle. The next one is property damage liability, and that obviously has to do with, again, liability means what you may be responsible to pay others when you're at fault. So in this particular case, instead of covering for other people's injuries, the policy would cover the property damage that you caused. So if you damage a BMW, the part of the policy that will cover for the expenses to repair that BMW, and so on and so forth. Now here's the most important, and here's the one that this video is focused on, is uninsured motorist coverage. It's sometimes called uninsured, sometimes underinsured, or both. This type of coverage is what will protect you and your family members and your passengers, and I'm speaking in general terms. If you get in an accident with somebody else, the other person is at fault, and they don't have enough insurance to pay for your damages, medical bills, and if there are permanent injuries, for your pain and suffering involved. That type of coverage is the key and most important coverage that will protect you and your family in situations of severe injuries and even death in motor vehicle accidents. Let me explain why this is a good policy. This one is good because it has a sufficient amount of bodily injury liability protection. It's a decent amount of coverage to cover your liability for other people that you may injure if you're negligent while operating a motor vehicle. The property damage liability is not a humongous amount, $25,000, but I think, unless there's a major wreck, should cover most of your liability. Now, uninsured motorist coverage, and you see that it says stacked. So this person did not reject UM. That's very important. A lot of insurance agents say, hey, you can, if you want to save some money, reject UM. Don't do that because that protects your family. And in this particular case, the person bought the same amount of UM as liability coverage. Under Florida law, auto insurance companies are required to offer you the same amount. So as you can see here, this person bought bodily injury liability, $25,000 per person, $50,000 per accident. For property damage, for some reason, bought a huge amount, $100,000. Like if they're gonna, destroy a brand new Mercedes-Benz. And then finally, for uninsured motorist coverage, they rejected it. This person is buying coverage to protect other people that they may injure in an accident, for $25,000, up to 50 per accident, 25,000 per person. Buys a huge amount of property damage liability, so it seems like this person is really worried about damaging other vehicles, even more than damaging, other human beings. And yet, when it comes to the protection of their own family, they totally reject the UM coverage. It does not make a lot of sense. You shouldn't reject the coverage. It would be probably better to reduce the amount of property damage liability, to maybe keep the bodily injury liability, and with the money you save by the lesser amount of property damage liability, buy some UM coverage. Now, I forgot to explain stacked. When you buy UM, you have stacked and non-stacked. So this particular one, for example, with the $250,000 liability coverage, was a stacked policy. So there were two vehicles insured on the policy. What that means is this: not only do you get the same $250,000 coverage for your own family as UM coverage, but it's stacked. So basically it's multiplied by the number of vehicles. So if you have two vehicles, so your actual total coverage for your own family is $500,000 per person and $1 million per accident. Because if it is stacked and you have two vehicles, then you multiply that by 2. If there are 3 vehicles, you multiply it by 3. Now, the worst type of policies, of course, are pretty horrible. They should convince you to buy UM coverage. And this one, you can see, it basically has no bodily injury liability. So basically, if this person is driving a car and he or she causes an accident, and you or a family member in your car get injured, that person is not going to have any coverage to pay for that. And they only have a small amount of property damage liability coverage, and something for themselves, which is the personal injury protection, for the very small amount up to $10,000. And that's about it. So that's a horrible policy. So try to stick to this balancing act where you get for yourself as much UM coverage as possible. One of the important things is this: if you think that you may have messed up and bought the wrong types of coverage, maybe something like this second policy that we showed, at any time, with most insurance companies, you can basically just call them, find out what your coverages are, find out if you have rejected UM, and you can unreject it at any time. You can put it back on and correct this mistake. Just too many times we've seen families that came to us with, family members who have either horrific injuries or even death, and basically there's almost no insurance to pay for their claim. So I hope this video was useful and that you will subscribe to this channel, and I appreciate your time. Thank you. A couple of important issues. Number one, this is not a specific legal advice for any specific case, and this is based on Florida law. So if there is a situation where somebody is injured, and even if there was a rejection of UM coverage, you should still consult with a lawyer, especially in situations where the injuries are severe and the other party does not have enough insurance, because there may have been mistakes made by the insurance company in obtaining the UM rejection. So anyway, in general, just if there is a bad situation, consult with a lawyer. This is just some general advice, a perspective from me as a lawyer as to why it's important to buy UM coverage.